Welcome to Creepin' It Real. I am Judah. Let's talk about the 1973 Spanish horror film known as Horror Rises from the Tomb. As I just mentioned, this is a Spanish film, so I cannot pronounce any of these names. So this was written and starred Paul. Here it goes, right from the start. Paul Nashi. Some of you may say to me, that was a horrible pronunciation, and you might be right. But let me take you to this little page right here. It has a whole lot of advertisements going on here. I wanted to make sure that I pronounce this name properly, so I looked this up, how to pronounce, and let's listen to this.
Paul Nassy.
Paul Nassy. Nassy? Okay, I definitely did not say it that way, but
Paul Nassy.
Paul Nassy. I'm going to see if I can remember to say it that way from here on out. This was a movie suggested to me by Holy Parish of Doom. He sent me another good one. There's a few more that he has sent me that I'll get around to. If you have any suggestions, please drop them in the comment section below, and I will get to them. Be warned that I love nitpicking movies. That's what I enjoy doing. I have a love for these old B movies, but I love cracking up about the horribleness of the low budgetness, pointing out things that should not make any sense, and they don't make sense. That's what I do. So if you're a little sensitive about somebody nitpicking on a movie you love, don't suggest it to me. But also know that all this nitpicking is done out of love for these horror movies. That doesn't mean that you have bad taste. It just means that I enjoy nitpicking. So let's look at the trailer.
From the dark and mysterious Middle Ages, full of mystery and violence, there now comes to the screen, Fear Rises from the Tomb.
Okay, first, that was weird. The voiceover guy called it Fear Rises from the Tomb, which clearly the title card said Horror Rises from the Tomb. On top of that, I just got to say that I love this music. It's repetitive. The music throughout the movie is so repetitive, but it adds to... I could definitely see having an argument with someone over this. Not a serious argument, because when it comes down to it, I really don't care. Which that's part of why I don't have a problem with making like grandiose statements about movies, you know, like very definitive and absolutes about this movie is trash and so forth. It's because it doesn't matter. It's a movie. It has no bearing on life. It's not going to enrich anyone in any way. It's just a movie. So I have no problem stupidly arguing about this kind of stuff. Now, more important things, I'm not going to get in an argument with somebody. Those type of things can cause division in friendships, but arguing over a stupid movie, you know, we can get irate with each other over a movie, and I'm going to walk away, no problem, because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to have any kind of hurt feelings that you like a movie that I don't like. You don't like a movie that I love. It doesn't matter to me because it's just a movie. But I could see some argument going on here about the music. There is something about this music, even though it's not great. It just fits the feel of these old 70 horror movies that just, I don't know, hit something inside of me. And I didn't quite realize the attachment that I have to the feel of these old 70 horror movies. As I watched this, I was like, wait a minute, I actually really like these weird, I don't know if you would call this a gothic horror, but I think you may, even though the music is super repetitive, and there's times when I swear the instrument they're using is literally just a comb that they're like running their finger over the teeth and just going, I swear that's what's going on in here. But watching this, I was just like, you know what? This isn't the greatest movie in the world, but I'm enjoying this. And not just because it's entertaining, which it's not. It's a mess. But there's just something about the aesthetics, the feel of the film, the sound quality, the acting, which, oh my gosh, the acting is just so melodramatic. Man, we haven't even made it through this trailer, and I'm already, okay, let's get going. Sorry.
A curse which would bring these people to the most terrifying situations.
I like this lady's face. I'm just saying. Her eyebrows are a little weird. They're like shaped in a way that makes her constantly look like she's concerned. I don't know, but I like her face. Guys, I have no idea why they included that in the trailer. I don't know, maybe they just wanted to show the gore. That point in the movie was one of the most awkward cuts throughout the whole movie. I mean, there was a few places that didn't make a whole lot of sense, but that scene right there, the girl walking down the hallway, tripping, somehow none of it makes sense. The way it was edited makes no sense whatsoever. You don't know what she's tripping. You see that hallway. She has a clear walking path. What the heck did she just trip over? So all we can do is assume that she tripped over this body. But how the heck did she, one, not see this body, and two, how you saw how slow she was walking? With what kind of force did she trip over this body that it moved the whole body to fall down the steps? This woman's body could not weigh more. Both of them, as individuals, could not be weighing more than 110 pounds. But the force that it would take to launch this resting body down the steps was not presented in the way this girl was walking. Maybe you might be able to fool me. You might be able to get me to agree that if she was running down the hall, not paying attention, running down the hall, terrified because something was coming behind her, she wasn't paying attention, she trips over the body with enough force to cause the body to fall down the steps. But at the same time, then she would have to fall down the steps. Anyway, that's not even, that was just a tangent I just came off of right this second. The real problem is this woman's body that fell down the steps, she was murdered in the kitchen, which is downstairs. The murderer, and oh my gosh, the way these victims react, they just freaking stand there and let people kill them. It's absurd. That's a frustration of mine. I would like to again point out the fact that I said that I like to nitpick, and I do, but I also enjoyed this movie, okay? But he kills her in the kitchen. You know, you have this obligatory rip the shirt so you can see the boob scene, which I'm not a fan of, but it did. I was like, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to get the boobies in there. But then he did cut her heart out, and I was like, okay, well, we could at least lean on the fact that he was like, well, I didn't want to ruin the shirt. I just wanted to cut her heart out. I mean, we could go with that. So he kills her in the kitchen, he cuts her heart out, and he slowly walks away, carrying her heart in his hands like this, okay? To take it off to his master or whatever. How did that body get up the steps? Who carried that body from the kitchen upstairs and set it right at the top of the steps? Nobody did. How did this happen? It was stupid. And you can't tell me that she revived for a second after having her heart removed and was looking for help and staggered up the steps and then finally died. The woman had no heart. She was dead. So that whole scene, when that happened, I was sitting in my bed, and when the chick walks down and then she trips and you see that body fall, I was just like, I sat up and I was like, what? How the heck did that body get up there? Let's continue. I enjoy this movie. It was so silly. Oh my gosh, so melodramatic. It was fantastic. oh yeah. Yep. Okay. Right here. This guy right here, Paul. I can't pronounce his last name already. Nashi. Paul Nashi. How did that thing? Anyway, Paul here. He's got a girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend. They even talking about getting married, even though Paul is all like, sorry, I'm a very selfish man, and if we got married, you'd be trapped and you'd be forced to be taking care of me. I'm doing my voice because this is in Spanish and I watched the dub version. I wonder if the subbed version would be any better. It probably wouldn't be as funny, that's for sure. Anyway, then I don't know. This girl here that my face is covering, this is the girl whose face I said I like. Anyway, at this point, she has very little to do with this movie at all. You see her and her sister, who was the chick that fell down the steps, off in the distance at one point at the beginning of the movie. But we have no interaction with her. We don't know who she is. There's like no character development whatsoever with her. But then suddenly, this dude is like, comes into her room and just starts macking on her. Like, what the frick? It was out of the blue. It made no sense to me. But nonetheless, let's get on with this trailer. Oh, the best. I have to get rid of my face so you can see this bitch slap from, oh my gosh, the greatest. Get rid of me. Okay, let's watch this again. Check this out. I think this was the first time that I like hardcore laughed. No, stop that.
Fear rises from the tomb.
That was so good. That bitch slap was fantastic, but that's not the only time it happens. There's a time that guy be going around bitch slapping everybody. It was fantastic. That was like his thing. I could just imagine him. Paul gives this dude the script and he's reading through it and he's like, Paul, I like this, but I didn't see any bitch slapping. Now, I'll come on, but you know my contractual clause states there can't be less than at least 3 bitch slaps in this movie. Because I'm not on board unless I'm bitch slapping people. So Paul's like, bro, you know how I feel about this bitch slap stuff, but you're a great actor. I love working with you. I'll work it in for you, bud. I'm a pro.
With Emma Cohen, Paul
Nashi. Paul Nashi. Okay. And Emma Cohen's. Emma is the one whose face I like. Paul Nashi. Let's do it.
Vic
Winner. The bitch slapper.
Cristina Soriani,
Oh, I'm not even trying that one.
Betsabe Ruiz,
Oh, that's out.
and Helga Linné
Uh-oh.
in the role of
Reveal.
Oh, I didn't realize Paul got a bitch slap in there too. Maybe my whole narrative is wrong. Maybe Paul's the one who likes bitch slapping.
Fear rises from the tomb. With all
Horror.
the mystery and terror of medieval rites and witchcraft.
You cannot tell me that music is not just like spot on for this time period and the feel of this movie. It's just fantastic. It's okay if you don't think it's fun.
The infernal power.
Do you guys remember, for those of you who have watched my review of City of the Living Dead, I went on a little rant about how I hate it when you have dead things that have been rotting and yet the eyes look fresh. So my first kind of like kudos to you guys, these zombies, on top of just looking legitimately decent and dead, they did not leave the eyes looking fresh. Their eyes look dead. So you get an A+ for dead eyes right here. This scene honestly made no sense. There was no kind of lead up to. This whole thing is about this warlock who is condemned to death. Him and his mistress or whatever, his wife, his companion. They read their rights, and this warlock gets his head cut off, and then his girlfriend gets strung up upside down, tortured, and then killed. And they bury his head in one location, his body in another. And they're like vampires or something. They're Satan worshipers. They eat flesh, all that kind of stuff. The whole movie is about that. But then suddenly these zombies pop up in the movie, which made no sense and had a very small portion of the movie. It was weird how it just randomly was like, oh, and by the way, there's zombies. And it was like, what? Where do these guys come from? Anyway.
Powers of evil persecuting these defenseless beings. Only the talisman could free them from the spellbinding influence. Fear rises from the tomb.
So funny, the melodramaticness of this. It's so perfect and fantastic. Oh my gosh, I love it.
A terrifying experience. It will take you a long time to forget.
That's weird looking off into the distance. Like, is she reading cue cards? What is this?
No! Fear rises from the tomb. A Pro Films production. Directed by Carlos Aurel.
7 moons have passed.
Good job, Carlos. I dug your movie.
Today we shall take them. I want, when the supreme day comes, that they are sufficiently prepared for the sacrifice.
As I mentioned several times, the melodramaticness of this movie is so fantastic. I know that I interrupted that trailer so much, and I mentioned a warlock gets put to death, and this is one of the biggest tropes from these 70, and I think in particular Spanish, especially I think this Paul Nashi guy. I think that before I like knew that he was writing these, maybe he didn't write all of them, but it said in somewhere that I read that he wrote this. It's a huge trope, in my opinion. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have seen this in more than 4 movies where it starts off in kind of medieval times where some kind of witch, warlock, wizard, you name it, is condemned to death. They're being burned at the stake, head chopped off, tortured. It doesn't matter. That's how it is. And as they're dying, they spout out some kind of curse on their on the person that has condemned them to death, and how they will avenge themselves in the future through their ancestors. So this movie started off super tropey because that's exactly how it began. So the movie starts off, you got this guy. Well, it just started off with this, warlock getting his head chopped off and his girlfriend getting tortured and killed. Then we jump to the future. We got Paul and his buddy. Paul shows up to his buddy's house. His buddy is a painter, which really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the storyline, which, by the way, full spoilers. If you want to see this movie without being spoiled, then stop now and go view the movie and then come back and watch this. Let me know what you thought. That was my attempt at being melodramatic. I don't know if it came off good or what. Paul goes to his buddy's house. He's like, hey, bro, so-and-so, this chick and this other chick are back in town. And his buddy's like, okay, I'll get ready. Apparently, they both have relationships respectively with the different women. They go. Obviously, Paul's buddy is in love with that blonde chick, skinny blonde chick. They just embrace and start making out like immediately. And anyway, then they all have dinner together. And then somehow this other couple, an older couple, shows up in this group. And they're all having like drinks together and discussing things. And this older couple are talking about a seance that they're going to be attending. And Paul and the two girls are like, oh, we want to come. And the old couple are like, sure, I'm sure we can work it out. But this is so weird. They look at each other. They're like, yeah, we can work it out. And they give each other little head nods. And I'm like, oh, this is some creepy stuff. They're not going to a seance. They're trying to recruit people for their swingers club. I swear, the way they looked at each other and gave each other this little nod like, oh, yeah. I was like, this is some creepy stuff. These old people are recruiting for an orgy or something anyway. It turns out, no, they were not. They really were going to a seance. Paul's buddy is like, no, I refuse. I'm not messing with that shit. And I agree. You don't fool around with that craziness. So they go, and of course you have the obligatory thumb to thumb, pinky to pinky around a table seance thing. Is this a Spanish only horror? I mean, seance thing where the pinky to pinky, thumb to thumb? Because this is now the third movie where I have seen the pinky to pinky, thumb to thumb. And I need to know. I'm not interested in doing any digging myself, but if someone out there would like to comment on that, I'd be more than happy than to read what you have to say. They're at this seance. Then they decide to ask some questions about this warlock that had his head cut off. Why? Because it has some connection to some property that Paul owns. During the seance, because his buddy is at home, just laying on the sofa, kind of pouting that everybody went to the seance with, and they didn't ditch the seance to hang out with him or something. So he's a little pouty. But during the seance, he starts getting these visions of that dude's head. He jumps up and he starts painting, but this he jumps up. There's a partially started painting. This is discussed at the beginning of the movie. He's like, I don't know, I can't get this painting right. Anyway, these flashes in his head. He jumps up, he grabs some paint, and he just starts dabbing. It's like 2 minutes later. Suddenly, the painting has like fully transformed. It's absurd how quickly this painting transformed into this new vision. And this dude rocks as an artist. That's all I got to say. He has perfected his craft because he just whipped that sucker out. So it's a picture of a headless body holding a head. And it's this spirit that they were communing with at the seance. The two chicks, Paul and his buddy, are all hanging out discussing the seance. And Paul's like, oh, it's bullshit. But that thing that flew, that was done with wires. And that stuff over there, that was just makeup. It was all fake BS, retarded. And well, the girls are like, well, how do you explain this or that? And he's like, I don't know, but it was all fake. And then they make a plan. Hey, let's go to my property and let's see if we can go find this dude's head. They talk to the buddy, and because he like hadn't wanted nothing to do with the seance, and like, do you want to come? And he's like, yeah, I'll be there. Because obviously his encounter with this vision with the head and his painting and everything, now he's in. He wants to know where this is going. So they go to this property that Paul's family owns, has a caretaker, which, by the way, from what I read, I know I keep calling him Paul. The character's name is not Paul. I have no idea. It was Hugo. The character's name is Hugo, but Paul Nashi, he plays him. Apparently, they used Paul's parents' house for this. It says the house was slightly damaged during the zombie invasion portion of the film, but according to what I read, his parents were okay and they were in good spirits about it. So there you go. They get to the estate. This is where you meet the caretaker's two daughters, but you don't really meet them. They just are standing there off in the distance. And Paul tells the caretaker, hey, I want you to take us down to, the catacombs and so forth. We want to take a look around. And the caretaker's like, no, you don't want to do that. And in fact, I refuse to go. People have been going down there and going missing. And Paul's like, look, bro, you work for me. You're going to take me. And those people just got lost. They're not dead. There's nothing supernatural going on. I have a map. We're going to be safe. Okay. All good. So they go to this like catacombs, kind of worn down, broken down, kind of castle-y type stuff. And they're just digging holes randomly, looking for some treasure. Okay. And then Paul's friend suddenly gets the vision from that head again, basically showing him where he needs to dig. So they dig up this treasure chest, but they can't pop it open. And they're like, oh, we'll just take it back to the house. And then in the morning, we'll get a torch and we'll cut it open. Well, this is when things start going really crazy. Two of the guys that were helping them, these hired hands that were there to help just dig, come back and break into the house. And they cut open the treasure chest. One of the guys gets possessed, kills the other dude. Things go crazy. He takes the head back to where the body is located at. He opens up the chest. The head is still alive. It's talking to people. It's putting the whammy on people. It's hypnotizing people. It gets Paul's buddy involved. People are missing. That's where the sister gets murdered and then body magically transports to the top of the steps where her sister trips over her. This is where the involvement of the one girl finally starts to come into the story. Her father, for one, gets murdered. So then this is where the sisters start to become more intricate into the story. And then her sister gets murdered. So then Paul's like, comforting her. If that's, I honestly have never been to a funeral where dudes like sucking on chicks' necks ever seemed like the way to comfort them. But I don't know. This is Spain. Things may be different over there. I don't know. No offense. Tell me, my Spanish viewers, potentially, is that how you console people when their father and sister have been murdered, as you just start sucking on their necks and squeezing their boobs? Is that how that works? Seemed like he was taking advantage, but that's just my opinion. In the end, everybody dies. The vampires get murdered, put back to rest, finally defeated, however you want to say it. The only person left alive is the one sister, but everybody else dies. There are some weird edits in this movie. As I mentioned, the music starts to get repetitive. Everything is super melodramatic. One thing that made no sense, it's like Paul, when he was writing this, he was just yanking stuff out of his ass like, oh, I wrote this. Now, how are we going to take care of this situation? Oh, I know. We'll just do this. And yes, that is how writing goes. But the dude was just writing some of the weirdest shit ever, I swear. People are all missing. At this point, Paul thinks everybody's dead except for him and the one sister. And then the sister's like, oh, by the way, my dad always talked about this treasure. Now, she's just now suddenly bringing this up, by the way, that he kept hidden in the well. And he's like, take me to it now. So they go and they pull up the rope and he opens up this little box and he calls it Thor's hammers. And it's like this talisman that they showed it in the trailer. It's like the circle and then it has two hammers coming off of it. And he's like, this is a very powerful talisman. This will protect you from all evil. And he gives it to her to wear. And it does. It protects her because this vampire dude tries to come to her at night. And he sees that talisman and he freaks out, turns into smoke and disappears. So it works. It also is intricate. Do you remember in the trailer where, guys, it's so fantastic. Paul's buddy is finally freed at some point from the hypnotic influence of the vampire, all because of Thor's hammer talisman, okay? It gets pressed against him, burns him, and he snaps out of the influence of the evil. So he comes back to the good side, and he starts reading all this information about how they can kill these vampires. Apparently, the talisman can kill the male vampire, but it has no power to. I mean, it can. It's bad to female vampires, like they don't like it, but it can't kill them. The only way to kill the female vampire is to pierce her heart with a silver needle. At this point, there's some creative camera work that shows like this little man of arms holding a little spear, and it's silver. So you know, oh, that's it right there. Anyway, Paul's buddy is chasing this vampire guy around with this talisman, and it's the funniest, like, Scooby-Doo stuff you have ever seen. It is so great. At one point, Paul's buddy throws the talisman. It hits the vampire guy, and he's like, ugh! He's mortally wounded, but not so mortally wounded that he didn't have enough strength to chuck an axe at Paul's buddy, which kills Paul's friend. So now the vampire is like slowly crawling on the ground because he was touched by the talisman. The sister gets the talisman and presses it against his face, and that is the end. He dies. Now, this is what bothered me. I get that you, as a person who has lost your brother, not your brother, your father, your sister, and the person who owned the home, so now you don't even have a job. Everybody around you is dead. You were almost killed. There would be a lot to decompress from. She's walking by this lake carrying this talisman, you know, trying to deal with all this stuff mentally and emotionally. But then she just chucks this thing into the lake. And I was like, of all the things you could do, that seemed like the dumbest thing to do. I would be wearing that talisman from that day forward. I would be wearing that talisman everywhere. But she just chucks it in the lake. There's no way. That seemed like a really dumb decision. I guess, you know, Paul, when he wrote this, he was like, this will be a nice way to let everybody know that things are really, truly, and fully done. The talisman has been thrown away because evil has fully been vanquished. Little did he know that he would be writing a sequel to this movie. Anyway, that chick needed to hold on to that talisman, but she didn't. For some reason, it made sense to her to throw it into the lake. All said and done, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. It definitely, and most of that is just from the absurdity of the melodramaticness, the music, the feel, the graininess of the film, the dubbing It all just added to me loving this movie. Now, you can only, in my opinion, watch this movie for the enjoyment of the silliness. To feel like you're going to get any kind of real terror from this movie is absurd. So forget about that. If you're going to go in, only go in to enjoy the absurdity of it. This is one, the blood is like flat out just bright red paint. I love that. It cracks me up. Before I wrap this up, because I've already gone way too long in giving my opinion on this, I'm at 38 minutes. Let me read to you what the reception was for this. Writing in the Zombie Movie Encyclopedia, it says, cites City of the Living Dead as having inspired the depiction of a zombie siege in the film. Some guy named Kurt of DV Talk wrote, clearly Horror Rises from the Tomb is over the top and a shining example of sleazy Euro trash cinema. In another review from DVD Talk, Stewart rated it a 2 out of 5 stars and recommended it to horror fans open-minded enough to forgive Nashi's film frequent incoherence and low budget. I'm pretty sure that that's what I said, in a way. But he nailed it. We could have finished this review, I don't know, 35 minutes ago had I just read that, because that right there pretty much summed up my feelings. I'm going to read for you a review on IMDb from somebody who gave it a 10 out of 10. This is from James Elliott 1. James Elliott 1 says, I don't remember if the late, great Mr. Nashi noted an inspiration for his script in his autobiography. The main concept of a warlock decapitated for his crime and in his undead head with hypnotic eyes dropped into a chest that's buried underground only to be dug up centuries later was the plot of the Universal's The Thing That Couldn't Die, a programmer made on Backlot in 1958 with a no-star cast. I'm sure he saw this film at some point, being a voracious consumer of American horror movies, and pulled out parts of it from his memory bank when he was knocking out the script in one long session. The BCI DVD is great, but still the cut version. A real interesting commentary track by both Nashi and director Carlos is available in this release. Unlike what you would hear in a commentary track from American filmmakers, these guys talk about the actresses' bodies and faces with a great deal of relish and zest. Wow, so Paul was a freaking creeper. Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense because he was getting super handsy in this movie. I mean, whenever there was a naked chick, dude was getting hands on. He was hands on for sure. Let me see if I can find one that just talks about this movie being horrible. Another 10 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 7. Oh, here we go. Wisdom's Hammer gives it a 3 out of 10. Let's see if I can make it through this. Be prepared for long, drawn-out scenes with blaring organ music on top, really bad acting, really bad makeup, hilarious death scenes. There is the odd moment of genuine entertainment and fun peppered throughout, but it's awfully tough to wade through the movie for them. It's a stream of boredom, predictability, confusion, and at times hilarity. I would rename this horror very slowly rises from the tomb to loud organ music. I love that. That's fantastic. If you like old gothic horror, you'll probably get a kick out of it. I did. I don't disagree with any of the things that this guy is saying. but I would still give it a higher score than 3. Probably get a kick out of it. If you're looking for witchcraft and the occult to be center stage, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. In this movie, the warlock and his concubine are just a couple of stock villains cast to be baddies. The movie did have a few moments where I said, okay, that was cool. And the unintentional, hilarious scenes that made me laugh out loud are what get this movie 3 out of 10 instead of 1 for me. I really don't want to see this again, though. Oh, Wisdom's Hammer. I like you. That again, that was a great review. Now, before I end this, I wanted to show you this scene. Remember, I talked about Paul's buddy love bitch slapping people. Check this out. I laughed so hard when this happened. It tickled me. And I'm not into I'm not into abusing women, but dang, this made me laugh.
Hugo went looking for you, Maurice. You had him very worried.
There you go. That was Horror Rises from the Tomb. I don't remember what score I gave it. I think I gave it a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed this. Thanks, Holy Parish of Doom. You sent me another banger. that cracked me up. These by no means are great movies, in my opinion. Holy Parish of Doom said that this is one of his favorites, and I can see it. It's good. It's a good laugh. You are gonna get this. Could definitely get a buddy bump. If I was watching this with somebody else and we were laughing together, I could definitely see this going from a 6 out of a 10 to a 7 out of a 10, simply from the buddy bump of how hilarious it was. Anyway, I am Judah. This has been Creepin' It Real. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you have anything to say, leave it in the comments below. Helpful criticism is always welcome. If you feel the need to downvote me, go for it. I support you. That's what it's there for. But I would also ask that you would leave a comment telling me why. I guess I'll just see you the next time. Later.